Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Good morning. I'm very delighted to be here this morning and to present also one of the presentations, especially because Ahmed Nijhorst and myself have been discussing in the past the importance of such an event for Suriname, and it's great to see that it's happening, and it's happening in a very great way. I'm the first speaker without a tie, but that doesn't mean that I'm a techie. So actually, my presentation is not about technology, so sorry for that for the technical people here, but please stay seated. It's all about creating a smarter government, for the future. A government which goes beyond their internal boundaries as they do at the moment. The topics I will be covering are, first of all, the eGov journey. And it is a journey, it's not something, an initiative or a project of a year or 2 years. Normally, other countries are, committed for years within, let's say, this whole journey. We will be talking also briefly about the forces of change. It's not only the choice and the policy of governments to go into eGov and change the way government will be operating, but there are external forces also putting governments on that route. As I said, I'm not a technical guy, but still I will be addressing some dynamic technologies interesting for governments, and which governments around the world are applying at the moment within the eGov journey. A very interesting topic I always find myself, for myself, very interesting is what I call power to the people. Power is shifting from organizations to individuals, and we will addressing that, and also especially the impact that is having on the way governments are becoming organized. I will also talk a little bit about the transition framework, which we have developed within KPMG, how government can, embrace the dynamic technologies which are out there. And I end my presentation, as also the title is saying, with, the digital economy. What is it? Why? With whom? So the forces of change. In today's complex global environment, governments are actually expected to formulate and implement policies in an unprecedented speed and authority, much, much more than in the past. We also seeing that the general public, and I will come back to that several times, is expecting greater transparency and accountability from the government, which is becoming a very important issue. Countries are also competing with each other, competing on getting foreign investments, competing on getting the best know-how and resources into their country to develop the country further. So there is a very fierce competition out there, not only between companies and the private sector, but also between governments, and they need to address those. And also finally, governments are looking for ways, and that's more internally, to improve decision-making process, decision-making more faster, improve efficiency and cost reduction, and of course, speed and responsiveness. People want to have government responding more with more speed. So for government agencies, it's not only about managing your internal organization and ministries, but it's much more than that. Responding and fast on what is happening outside the boundaries is one of crucial importance. So to respond appropriately, governments can implement effective plans using today's collaborative tools. technology tools, and I will address them later. Those tools are called either Web 2.0 or also referred to as Gov 2.0. I will explain that later in the presentation, but let's look at the journey first. And eGov is a journey. We used to look at eGov very internally, as I mentioned before, optimizing internal processes and focusing on efficiency and cost reduction within our ministries and government departments. But nowadays, eGov is much more. The necessity to connect to the rest of the community is an important element of the evolution and future of the public sector. So the connection to the public and the citizens will be of utmost importance for the future of the public sector, and therefore also for eGov initiatives and projects to be undertaken. Worldwide, we are seeing several countries initiating eGov projects, and each of them are in different stages. What we see becoming a very important issue, which also need to be addressed by the government, and which need to be taken into account when we initiate eGov projects and initiatives, are public service. People are demanding better service from the government, the same as they do from the private sector. Transparency, which I already mentioned, and active participation. Those are becoming actually increasingly important drivers in defining the future of eGov. So again, it's not only about shared services, it's not only about online presence and online transactions, it's much more than that. So my presentation will take you a little bit on that journey. Let's look at the forces of change. Because as I mentioned before, it's not only the government and the ministers deciding, which route to take, but there are also external forces forcing governments to go a certain route. So you better embrace them. So the demands being placed on government in the 21st century are being driven by forces which are actually in many cases beyond their control. Never before governments have had so much challenges as they have today. Organizations, both private and public, are becoming increasingly interconnected. Societies have been linked together globally, not only through the internet, but also through transportation, the banking system, international trade, and the communication media. As a result, the impact of events thousands of miles away are felt swiftly and deeply also here in Suriname or locally in the backyard. So the developments, many of which are underpinned, by the way, by IT, which I mentioned, banking, transportation, internet, etc., and communication, many are underpinned by IT, are necessitating transformational change by governments. So I can mention there, and you all know about the global economy, how that is interconnected completely. If a big country or Europe is in a recession, we feel it. Government intervention, we have seen in the past years, enormous government intervention, which was not normal in the past, to save the banking sector or other interventions. Push for transparency. You open newspapers nowadays and the debate is active and alive about transparency. Citizen-centric government, I talked about already the importance of the individual, and the whole government is becoming much more citizen-centric. A very interesting one, and we're talking about technology here, is what we call the workforce demographics. There are a lot of young people now joining the government. For them, social media, Facebook, etc., and the way they use technology is common. So as the new workforce coming in, they will demand better tools to do their work and also openness in their work, the way they report and conduct their processes. Security of a country is also a very challenging issue nowadays. Who's coming into the country and things like cybersecurity. And governments, we also see huge challenges in emerging crises, which we don't know yet, but may have to do with diseases, or which have to do with global warming or whatever. So governments are really under pressure nowadays, more than ever before. And those are external forces which are not always in control of the government, but still decide the way they will be organized in the future. Let's look at some dynamic technologies also, which we are seeing are as a driving force for change for government. So it's not only the external forces, which I just talked about, but there are also forces which are more technology based. Dynamic technologies associated with the internet are driving the evolution of information exchange and service delivery, and arguably may have one of the greatest impacts on government's operations. The business of government relies on information from many sources. Technology is integrated into almost every aspect of government nowadays. However, governments historically looked at IT as a cost. And when there become budget constraints, it's often also cutting into IT. But that was the past. This is no longer the case. New technologies are becoming more affordable, enabling greater productivity and efficiency gains. Besides that, today's technology investments can also provide governments with new ways to leverage information and address emerging needs. And I talked about the Web 2.0. Web 2.0 is actually a collective term for social networking, blogs, and related online environments. And this, along with open source, mobile technologies, and the continued growth of raw computer power, and I will talk about that later, is creating a transformational shift how people interact with each other. Until recently, content and distribution channels were largely proprietary in nature and under institutional control. So it's my data, it's my ministry, my data, and that is changing rapidly. With the emergence of Web 2.0 technology, individuals can create, customize, and distribute specific information to anyone, anywhere. Also, governments are at various stages in development and maturity, as we've seen also in the e-journey slide I showed you. Several countries are in several stages adapting these technologies. The growing momentum behind such technologies is a key driving force to empower individuals to share information and communicate with many people having similar interests. So you will have those social groups communicating with each other. There is also resistance to go through that route, but what we're seeing, resistance is often rationalized by security concerns. We cannot share, we cannot open the data, etc., because of security concerns. But actually, that has only to do with a long-standing cultural practice of controlling information. That's gone. So, IT has a strategic innovation factor. We are moving actually from the information era to the knowledge era. And my friend Franco Diaz also mentioned that in his presentation. And this is creating actually new forms of collaboration and operating models. Today's automation is about process integration. The advances in automation are providing many organizations with greater flexibility and agility to leverage data and enable this process integration. Government agencies around the world are seeing this as an opportunity to reduce costs surrounding IT through actually switching from buying and maintaining hardware and software as they did until now and in the past, to acquiring IT as a virtual service, using new sourcing approaches such as software as a service, SaaS, and cloud computing. So cloud is actually a platform for transformation, and it's becoming that very seriously. Many governments are embracing the cloud and cloud computing initiatives that offer secure enterprise application, IT hosting, and other IT services at a fraction of the cost of today's approaches. Many government organizations are using outsourcing, commercial off-the-shelf solutions and shared services models instead of mandating each agency and ministry to build and maintain often old and redundant application solutions. Organizations are working to develop service-oriented architecture that can take advantage of shared services and integrate legacy applications and data. So yesterday's silos are being replaced by cloud computing platforms. And even so, I will not go into depth about cloud computing, as there will be a presentation also tomorrow about cloud from my colleague Giovanni Quilot. Actually, cloud is a very old concept. You know, we're using the cloud already for 60, 70, 80 years maybe. It's called water and electricity. It's the same concept. You know, if we need the water, we open the tap. It runs. When we don't need the water anymore, we close the tap. And depending on the usage, we get a bill at the end of the month. Somebody somewhere is producing that water and electricity. We hope and think it's safe, it's secure, and we just make use of it. Cloud computing is actually the same model. That's the way, you know, I'm a non-techie, so that's what I understand. That's the way a lot of times we explain it. It's not a new concept, but what you're seeing is that data, application, computer power, etc. is also shifting to that same model. And we call it cloud computing, you know, a new gadget. Within cloud computing, we distinguish several service models, SaaS, PaaS, and infrastructure as a service. Again, I will not go into much detail there. And we have several deployment modules. You know, we have private clouds, we have public clouds, community clouds, and hybrid clouds. But again, that will be covered tomorrow in depth by Giovanni Quilot. KPG also had done a study on government's adoption of cloud. And you can get that, let's say, that information also you can download it later on if you want, you know, from our site, which gives you a lot of insight on how governments are adopting the cloud. We ourselves are doing a lot in this area of cloud computing at the moment, helping especially organizations in what we call cloud readiness assessments. You know, are you ready for the cloud or not? And in that respect also, we have a strategic alliance with CTEX, my friend Anthony De Lima, which CTEX is the region's most advanced data center opening later this year. So it's really moving to in that direction. So there are a lot of benefits of embracing dynamic technology, which I mentioned already, and governments can take advantage of those dynamic technologies for the following potential benefits, which I mentioned here. Provide better services to citizens, improve access and quality of data and information, understanding and managing risk better, improving workforce knowledge and collaboration, streamlining organizational structures, improving operating efficiency, and addressing emergent policy needs more effectively. Power to the people. Implementing new technologies will result in more active participation of the public, of the citizens. You know, Web 2.0 is already rapidly enabling interactions with citizens. And what we're seeing also that power is continuously shifting from organization to the individual. And public interaction is becoming the center stage of the public governance agenda for a lot of countries. But this also means that governments need to engage and listen to the crowd. More and more governments engage more with the crowd and listen to their ideas and concerns. And by doing this, it will benefit the government also. Why? Because if you connect with the crowd, if you actively let them participate in policy making and in, for instance, giving feedback on project initiatives, etc., you have a much broader group of experts working with you as government. It's not only decided in that ministries and by the civil servants, but you are also embracing and connecting experts from abroad to help develop the policies, which of course also will give a much better ground for success when implementing those policies. So a lot of governments are now working, you know, embracing what they call crowdsourcing. It's the access to distributed groups using the internet to get ideas, to get feedback, to maybe perform tasks, to validate your propositions as government, you know, and they can score also, you know, if they like it or not. So it's all about crowdsourcing, which is becoming a very important topic for governments and also to take into account when we initiate eGov projects. But saying that, it also means freeing the data, you know, and this is a real hot topic nowadays, freeing the data, and it's actually very actively debated at the moment about, you know, opening up the data for the public. As we speak, you know, you can open the newspaper. It's in the US now a very hot debate about data opening, etc. But fact of the matter is that if you want the crowd, the citizens, to participate actively as government in policy making, etc., and also by doing that, helping you to innovate constantly, you must free up the data. A lot of cities and countries are doing this. This is an example of Canada, where they have several sites where people, you know, can get access to public data, actually. And also, President Obama said, my administration is committed to creating an unprecedented level of openness in government. Also, the US government is now debating this very much as we speak. But you see that a lot of governments are opening up the data to their citizens. What can you achieve? What I said, global reach, rapid input, collective intelligence, you know, not only from the civil servants, but also from people outside the government, a huge talent pool which you can tap into, innovation through new ideas from the citizens, you know, and also, of course, you get more trust and loyalty from the citizens. And the ones who will be engaged are actually the public, the businesses, suppliers, subject experts, and your own employees as government entities. So, in conclusion, engaging citizens will benefit our communities and the government. And Web 2.0 and social networking tools are changing and really changing the way government does business and will be doing business in the future, no doubt about it. So let's see how we can help and how governments can more easily adapt those new dynamic technologies and Web 2.0 technologies. And actually, we have developed at KPMG a what we call holistic transition framework for that, where you know, given these developments, governments can take best advantage of the new global information environment. Many governments are poised to undertake pilot initiatives, leveraging collaborative and new approaches, but it's all about getting the framework right. And the following framework is actually and can be helpful for governments seeking to transition to Web 2.0. It's a very simple framework consisting of 4 steps: creating a collaborative operating model, and I will go into that a little bit more, rationalizing applications, especially the current applications, arranging the infrastructure, and a very important one, which a lot of times we don't consider too seriously, but it's very serious, is leveraging the culture within government. Creating a collaborative operating model is in fact identifying mission-critical business processes that support the strategy of the organization of government, you know, to embrace more, let's say, the knowledge processes and moving into that direction. And to take advantage of collaborative and process integration tools, governments need to identify how they are using the information. And that's completely different and can be completely different as they did in the past. A very nice example is in the UK, where they have a site called fixmystreet.com. And on that site, citizens around the UK can post information, pictures on holes in their street, in their neighborhoods, making a picture, posting it, themselves deciding the content of that message, and they send it to maybe public services or public works department or so. And the public work departments receive that data and information, which is not the normal way they used to work the past 100 years when, you know, they first started to build roads, etc. So it's very important for governments to understand the new technologies which they are embracing, but it will have a huge effect on the processes within the ministries, how they go about the information and how they go about, you know, embracing citizens' input to, you know, to, let's say, initiate the process to fix that road. Because at the end of the day, you want that road fixed and fast. So those are new ways, you know, we're seeing where the users decide how they want to use the tools, and they drive the expansion of content by adding their data and their knowledge. So the citizens, they add their data and their knowledge and give that as input. So it's a completely different way of how processes are being designed and processed. Rationalize applications. one of the points I just want to mention here is development of an enterprise architecture, you know, where it's very important to have a common data classification model, which is key for long-term benefits for cross-program and cross-agency collaboration. So it's very important to come up with a common data classification model within the government. That's already becoming technical, so my excuses for that. But an enterprise architecture model assists governments in leveraging Web 2.0 tools and techniques. And arranging the infrastructure is, let's say, the third step in the framework. Many governments now have network infrastructure in place. However, many are built around proprietary and siloed applications and databases. So those networks and infrastructure is a lot of time not very open. And of course the aspect of security. It's very funny, but people expect access to information and services, but they also demand that private data is handled properly. So the way we secure data, the way we look at data is different than in the past. It's much more complex. It's not only how to restrict access, but it's also entering information which is trusted and can be protected. Because if you broaden your information gathering, how you're sure that the information you're getting as government is trusted information. And that's a very complex issue. And the last step is leveraging and adapting the culture, where I really want to focus on the fourth bullet point. Actually, where the main point is that, let's say, the current and new generation of government workers are much more comfortable with collaborative online problem solving than the previous generation, which actually are now, you know, are still their boss. So it's a challenge there of culture. But fact of the matter is, I think that the technology will drive the development of new processes here, right? No doubt about it. So here we come to, let's say, what I call the digital economy. Because when you talk about the internal eGov processes and ministries, and you talk about connecting to the rest of the world, your citizens, suppliers, businesses, there is actually where, let's say, everything comes together. The digital economy is about participation of everyone. It's about who participates, when, and what. And here is, let's say, a slide which hopefully gives a little bit more insight in the definition of a digital economy. It's about the what, you know, it's about connecting people, it's about providing information and service to businesses, to citizens, to students, you know, it's about users which are actually the end citizens. How they are interacting and consulting with the government and with each other in a digital economy. They deliver and consume services across the economy. We discover and we help innovate each other constantly. That's the public, the businesses, government and employees, making use of new technologies like the cloud, social media, apps, mobile, etc. And that is done anywhere, anytime. So, as part of the digital economy, governments themselves needs to become more smarter. And smarter in opening the dialogue, smarter in using efficient back office processes, smarter in modernizing the workplace so that the younger generation, feels at home and works as they would like to work, using the modern tools. Smarter, becoming a more citizen, customer-centered service government. Smarter in the fact of sustainability, and especially also what I mentioned before, transparency. People want to know where the money is going. People want to know the status of projects. People want to have better insights in the policies. Why? And smarter in exposing the data, which I mentioned also. So, as part of a successful digital economy, governments themselves also need to become smarter. What can we achieve as a collective within this digital economy? Better productivity, more transparency. We're having a global reach as a country. Also, in some countries more than others, it helps with preserving human rights. Innovation, very important, by connecting with citizens, by connecting with expert groups. They help to innovate and constantly innovate society and the economy and the government. So actually, this at the end will help in improving, life of citizens and the prosperity of your citizens, which should be the end game and the end, objective of every government. But we all need to play our roles. Also, all the parties involved within this digital economy. Governments should act as the model, open the data, engage the public, support risk-taking by opening the data, and the government should make sure, and I know also in Suriname are working relentlessly on regulations which will support, let's say, e-gov and the whole digital economy. Businesses also should invest, engage their customers and empower their employees. Employees themselves should work across silos, right? Not only their department, but working with citizens, which is very different to what they do now. So thinking out of the box and value the citizens, value the customer more. And the individuals, the citizens themselves, should develop the skills to make use of the new dynamic technologies and use the services which will become available. Because we can talk about e-gov, we can talk about very nice things, but it's all about making use of this. There are some lessons learned also. We as KPG have been involved, and not myself, but internationally in several e-gov initiatives. A country which is very far is Canada, which I showed already. We are actually in a phase where, in the phase of transparency, opening up and innovation, etc. It's very important, and I showed that in one of my first slides, that it's a journey. It's not a project of 1 or 2 years. Governments, on average, they have a vision of 15 to 20 years to come to that end stage. And that means that the leadership of the country, everybody should be aligned and have the same vision, also when government change, right? There should be sustained funding. I can, for instance, mention that Panama just started an e-gov initiative and is in their first phase, is more defining the strategy, etc. And they budgeted $25 million for that first phase only. Most of it, by the way, a lot of countries get funding from international funding agencies like the World Bank, etc. So sustained funding is very important. Commitment from the leadership is very important. The organization should be ready to start this initiative, and it's very great to see that Suriname is taking this very serious also with the committee and the commitment of leadership. Very important through this journey is also getting regular citizen and business feedback. Be open for feedback, critical feedback, and make use of it and try to, you know, improve where necessary. And also measure where you are. You know, meten is weten. So you should measure. If you have goals, after 3 years, measure them and see, you know, is it really working? Are the citizens really engaged? Are they really using the services? Are my processes, you know, working better, etc. So those are a couple of lessons learned I wanted to share with you. And that here I come actually to the, let's say, conclusion of my presentation. For those who are interested, we have a lot of thought leadership and publications on this. I can leave this slide on because for those who have a BlackBerry or so, they can make, you know, they can make a picture and go directly into the link there. And also, I think it will be on, a lot of publications will be on the site of the summit, but also on KPG's own site, our Dutch Caribbean and Suriname site, where we have a special ICT Suriname Summit link for all the publications and presentations. So we're opening up the data for you. And you can get immediate access also to view on complex business challenges from KPG professionals around the world by downloading through the iPad, you know, or our app store as you wish. Thank you very much. I hope this has a little bit gave you a broader insight on eGov. I see that it's a very important and interesting topic here in Suriname also. So I'm delighted that I could have shared some thoughts and experience on this with you. Thank you. Questions? Yeah. You should ask the lady, but I think you need to shout. Oh, there is a mic.
Hello. Thank you. My name is Suresh Gangaram Pandey. I'm from the High School Amsterdam and also collaborate with UNASAT in Paramaribo. I have a question. You know, we have big problems in the world if you're talking about digital world, because we have the cybercrime and we have the waste disposals of digital equipment. It's a big problem, and I know the world is suffering with this. My question to you is, where is this covered in your e-government journey?
Waste disposal?
Also, and cybercrime.
I talked about cybercrime and the importance of it to, let's say, come up with processes, regulations, etc. to cover that. It's a real issue with a lot of governments, so I covered that. Waste disposal, I didn't cover. It's waste and the whole, let's say, waste management is a huge issue in several countries, you know. So I really cannot answer that how each country is handling that. But I think that's more about waste management than embracing Web 2.0 technology or, you know, eGov.
Yeah, I created a new word for that, and it's called e-ethics. And we hope that that will be covered in all those digital programs. Okay. Thank you. And my last, it's not a question, it's more, I would like to ask you, is it possible to get your presentation?
Yeah, as I mentioned, it will be posted also on the ICT Summit site, but also on KPG's website. You can post it and you can go to all the different publications we have on eGov. There are a lot of publications, not only, but also of the other presentations we will be giving. But you're more than welcome to go to the site and download whatever you need.
Thank you very much. I learned a lot from you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. No more questions? I'm walking here around the coming days, so if one of you would like to discuss more, I understand I was also invited to join the hot seat this afternoon. Not sure what that means, but I'm delighted to be part of that also. Thank you very much again for your attention.